Hey everyone, welcome back to the next Python tutorial. In this one, we're going to go over dictionaries, which is another non-primitive data type inside of Python. So it's kind of like a list, and if you remember, we had lists that look like this, and they contain like names, or they can contain anything. But this is what a list looks like, and you remember that from the last couple of videos. But we're going to have, there's another data type called dictionary, which looks kind of similar to a list, but it works a little differently. So a dictionary, instead of using the square brackets, and first off, I just made a variable and I named it dictionary. You can name it whatever you want. But instead of using square brackets, you use the squiggly brackets, which is the same key on the keyboard, but you hold down Shift. And instead of typing like we did in the list up here, which was Jody, Bill, Bob, you can make a dictionary. And the dictionary, instead of being indexed like a list where you access Jody with the index 0, you access Bill with the index 1, you access Bob with index 2, you actually assign a key to the value. So if I do, we'll do this. We'll do like an inventory for a character in a video game. So we would have like weapon, sword. Actually, here, I'll do this. Weapon, armor is like leather armor, and item, potion. So that's what it looks like. One thing I want to show you before we go any further, you can actually do this to make things more organized. You see how I put my list and it's all written on the same line? After the comma, you can actually just do this and kind of organize it this way. Python doesn't care. So we'll do that with the dictionary as well, like right after the comma for each entry, just so it's easier to read. And this is honestly, if we were making a game, this was kind of be the system I would use to kind of make a inventory for a character. And what we'll actually do is we'll call this inventory. Hold on one second. Sorry, I don't use I actually don't use idle that much, so I don't know a lot of the shortcuts. So let's just retype this in. I was trying to shift it backwards, but it wasn't working correctly. So, all right. So this is a dictionary, and we have it. It's called inventory, and what it equals is three things. It actually equals a sword, leather armor, and potion, or the word leather. And then these are the values: sword, leather, and potion. And then these are called keys. So weapon, armor, and item. So remember how in list we have these three names. We got Jody, Bill, Bob. And we access those by typing in index 0, index 1, and index 2. But what if we, instead of entering a number like an index, we want to enter like a name or a word to access something? So we can actually type in the keys to access the values. So we can do print inventory, and then you would still use the square brackets because we're accessing something inside the inventory. But instead of using numbers like an index, like index 0, we're going to type in keys. So we're going to type in weapon. So this is going to go into our inventory dictionary, and it's going to use the key weapon. And what that's going to do is, here's a key called weapon, and it equals sword. So this should print sword. And there you go, it prints out sword. So this is kind of why you would use dictionaries. If you, instead of accessing by an index, by a number, you want to access things by typing in like a key for it. You'll see again when we do projects, I'm going to use lists and dictionaries, and there's certain reasons why you would use lists and certain reasons you would use a dictionary. The main reason you would use a list over a dictionary is if it's something you want to loop through, like in a certain order. Like it needs to access the first thing, then the second thing, then the third thing, then the fourth thing, and run code on each one of those things in a certain order. With a dictionary, you would do it to be Well, number one, dictionaries are actually faster, and we'll get into why that is later, but it's faster to access things in dictionaries. So it's not uncommon to have a list with like a million things in it. You can write some code that can generate a list that has a million things, and if you got to execute code on each one of those millions of things, it can be pretty slow. But if you're trying to access, like if you're using a dictionary that has a million things in it, to access a particular thing at the end of the dictionary, it's a lot faster than using a list. And again, you can use keys to access certain things, so it's easier to keep it organized. But there's pros and cons to both, and we'll get into that later. But just know this is the syntax to access to create a dictionary. And you also don't have to store. I used all strings for mine, so the key and the value are both strings. But I can make a key that's the integer 5, and it contains the boolean false. So if I want to print, if I want to access my inventory with the key of 5, it's going to say, oh, there's the key 5, and it's going to print false. So you can use any type of data type you want. You don't have to use strings like I initially used. You can have a dictionary with just one thing. You can have a dictionary with a million things in it. And we'll use them more later on. But yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know about dictionaries right now. I'll see you on the next video.